So this is sort of a recap of what we were talking about earlier. Focusing on your career goals and not just on your past experience. Let me make that a little bit more real. So just because you have a great accomplishment doesn't necessarily mean it goes on your resume. You're like, what? But it was a great accomplishment. If it's brand confusion, don't list it. I'll give you an example. I once had a coaching client, because I write resumes for people, and it turns out that her big focus was in, this is again a Washington thing, coalition building, right? Talking to C-level executives and pulling them together for advocacy reasons, very legislative kind of a thing. Well, I was walking her through her examples, her accomplishments, and it turns out that at one point she had done like the 50th anniversary gala of like some big nonprofit. I mean, it was a very, very big deal accomplishment. Had zero to do with her brand. I said, Barbara, I gotta get rid of it. She's like, oh. I said, yeah, because it's brand confusion. If you list that and other things like that, it will say, or it could say to the employer that you're looking to do meeting planning. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. It was a really interesting accomplishment, but really had zero to do with what she wanted to do in the future. Does that make sense? Okay, so be very, very careful in which accomplishments you list. They must really relate to what you're going for. I usually say list about 6 to 9 competencies, and I'll show you some samples of what I'm talking about. I tend to use a text box at the top. You don't have to. I mean, my style is not the only style, but conceptually you'll see what I'm talking about. 6 to 9 could be 10, what have you, but make them stand out. Now, here's the thing. These last 2 bullets, I've got to emphasize this more than anything else, I think. You absolutely have to customize your resume these days for every single job. Not some, not like 2 or 3 versions like we did years ago. I'm talking every single, and you're like, but that takes so much time. Yes, it does, which means that you really need to be critical in your vetting of that opportunity to see if this is something, A, that you want to do, and B, that you're qualified for. Now, why would I say that? Well, of course I'm going to apply for a job I'm qualified for. Aha! Remember that thing about the typos I said? Well, there's another sort of phenom, okay, in the job seeker world that I lovingly call bullet number 5 syndrome. What? Bullet number 5 syndrome. This is what it looks like. You're looking over that job announcement. And by the way, how long does it take you to screen a job announcement before you decide you're going to apply? Give me a time frame.
5 minutes.
5? Oh, that's, wow. You're
5
really...
seconds.
Thank you. 5 seconds. Absolutely. By the way, we recruiters don't give you much longer either on the resume. This is sort of both, okay? You're screening, we're screening, and okay? So you take that 5 seconds, and here's what goes on in your brain. I call it bullet number 5. What does that mean? You're like, that thing, right? Bullet 5, that's me. And your eyeball just sort of glosses over everything else as if 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 summary requirements just didn't even exist. It's a brain thing, okay? So call it an optical illusion, whatever you want, or selective perception. But bullet number 5 exists for most every single person. I'll give you an example. This one I'll never forget. So I got a recruiter and a coach, right? So I was recruiting for trade associations are my tribe, okay? Membership organizations. So I was recruiting on behalf of an association several years ago. And this executive director, wanted me to find a purple squirrel. I mean, we're talking bright purple, okay, in a sea of red. I mean, it was just crazy. I'm like, Stuart, really? You really want? Yes, we want them. Fine. Okay, I go and find this person. 6 months later, Stuart lost his job. For whatever reason, board just, didn't work out, okay? So then he comes back to me in a coaching capacity. Shira, coach me, help me do my resume, help me find okay. Do the resume, do everything, and he's an executive director. He's a #1 chief executive. That's really, truly was the kind of job he was going for. And one day, I remember where I was sitting when I had this text back and forth. I laughed. This is why I share the story. He was sending to me a job announcement for another association. What was the job? It was a director of education. Now, he had done that kind of job, 20 years ago, right? Certainly not in his bailiwick now, by any stretch of the imagination. Way overqualified for that kind of work. And I said to him, sir, look, they want ABC, 1, 2, 3, and would you like to know what he wrote me back? Well, I don't understand why recruiters today are so myopic. Can't they just see my transferable skills? And then I wrote it back. I said, touche, how quickly we forget. Because you're right. Okay, this is what it is. Do you get it? I mean, it's goose and gander. Okay, people, this is human nature. Bullet number 5 really, truly exists. Okay? Okay, so when I say to focus on customize, here's what I'd like you to do. First of all, get out of bullet number 5 syndrome. Know that you're going to go through that. Okay? Be very, very objective about your vetting. Don't take the 5 seconds, take the 5 minutes, and go as follows, okay? First thing, I want you to go right to the requirements section. Straight there. Just do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go right to the requirements. I want you to look at the first, second, and third requirements in that job announcement and fixate on them. I'm talking pour over it, pick it apart, really read it with an objective eye as if you were the recruiter who was vetting your own resume. You've got to take an objective look at this. So you look at those first 3, and here's what you're going to say. It's going to say something like, we want this many years of this skill. We want this degree. We want this industry experience, da-da-da. By the way, these days, remember purple squirrel syndrome? Here's how that shows up. When the employer says such and such a skill is preferred, what does that actually mean these days? Required. Yeah, it really means required. It really means that they want the purple squirrel who actually has the thing that they can't officially say it's required because it may not be required, like they can't, right, like legally they can't say that, but they can say wink, wink, nudge, nudge, prefer. That means they're going to hold out, right, because they don't want to take a risk, right? So really, really try to look through, and first of all, if that job is not at least 80%, that's the rule of thumb that I use, 80% match, don't even apply, don't even bother, not worth spending your time. Look critically at every single one of those requirements. Then go back to the summary and the job announcement and look and see, okay, again, is this something that fits me? Is this something I want to do? Do I really have what they're looking for? But remember this too, and I know this is a talk about resumes and not about the job search, but I'm going to throw this one in for free. 70 to 80% of all jobs are gotten through personal networking, not through the job board. So for as much as we're spending time on resumes, and that's fine, this is really for the 20-30% of the time. This is not for the majority. You know why? Because now you're competing. Once that thing is posted, you're competing with hundreds of other candidates. So the chances of you getting selected to the top are very, very small. On the other hand, if you're the purple squirrel, okay, scratch on their door, okay, go serve them up a nut, and show them by customizing, okay? Oh, and one other thing about customizing. English is a very fluid language, right? We have lots of things called synonyms. Yes, say the same thing 5 different ways. You want to find the synonym that they use, that you use differently, and swap it. My best example of that, speaking of meeting planning, would be, what's really the difference between meeting planning and event planning? Well, yes, we can parse it out. Of course, there's a difference. But in reality, they might be saying meeting planning, you said event planning, use their language. If that shoe fits, wear their shoe. Okay? Make sense?